Welcome back to another episode of Good Question by CoinScheduleTV. So Tom, thanks very much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you giving me your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Anthony.
So we met initially a couple of months back, and you were telling me about your involvement in your creation of a documentary, The Trust Protocol. And so I was just wondering if you could just give us a little introduction, how you got into crypto, and then how that kind of evolution of your involvement in crypto brought you to make a documentary about the space.
I guess kind of my involvement in crypto was about 3 years ago. I used to live with a developer who worked on things on the BitShares network, and he sold me the dream on BitShares, saying it's going to go to the moon. This is where the future is. And so I invested in. I convinced my father to invest in, and a load of mates, and then it crashed straight afterwards. And they kind of thought it was a massive scam effectively, but I kind of stayed in. I was recruiting at the time in kind of the open source space, so and kind of embedded systems. Everyone was talking about cryptocurrency, so kind of delved in a little bit, watched some of the theory, and started to understand kind of the global impact of I guess kind of the currency side of things, and it's just kind of been a journey into the space ever since. I guess after that, we then decided to create a documentary.
Yeah, so the documentary, as far as I understand it, was funded through the Dash Treasury. Is that correct?
Yeah, part of it was funded. The majority of it was funded by the Dash Treasury System. It's basically we went through the DAO, which is kind of a very kind of poetic way to enter into the crypto space kind of full time, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. But it's basically. They're a little bit different from Bitcoin in the fact that they have a mining. The mining reward is split into 3 places, and they have masternodes holding up all the extra services, things like instant send and private send. So 45% of the mining reward goes to the masternode holders, and they're basically people who hold about 1,000 Dash and kind of stake it onto the system so that we can get all these extra services. But with that as well, it's kind of a democratic system, an anonymous democratic system where they get to vote on projects that can be funded by 10% of the mining reward. So it's 45% to the miners, 45% to the masternode holders, and 45% to projects they deem worthy of Dash, or something that is going to kind of jump for the good of Dash or for the good of the space in the whole. It's kind of that's basically what the whole community is striving towards. So we put a proposal in for a documentary, kind of an unbiased documentary that would highlight Dash as well as other cryptocurrencies and the blockchain technology behind them, and basically educate the world, but more on a global platform. So so we're aiming for a large distribution platform effectively with this.
Yeah, and just speaking about Dash for a moment, I find the Treasury system just genuinely fascinating. The idea that you can democratically vote. All the token holders can democratically vote for what they want the Treasury to be used for, and then there's this competition between different projects. And so, what was your how would you review the process of applying to the Treasury and seeing how it all unfolds on the inside? Do you think it's a good system? Do you think it needs improvement? Can you elaborate on that, please?
I'd say it's got its good and bad points. I love Dash. Like, Dash is one of my kind of my favorite projects. Obviously, they're brilliant, and actually kind of advocating digital cash, which I think is brilliant. But I'd say with the Dash Treasury system, it is early days. They've funded a lot of successful projects. They've got their message out there. They're focused on getting their message out there, getting the currency various places. So in regards to adoption and supporting their ecosystem, it's a very good way. But I guess from an actual proposal side, I'd say it's extremely stressful.
I can imagine.
You put a proposal forward, and you've then got to campaign to a lot of anonymous people that this is for the good of the currency, and this is for the good of the project. I think it helped as well that we put our proposal through initially during the 2017 bull run. So they basically had some of the treasury left. We put our proposal through initially, and got absolutely slated by the system. Everyone was ripping us apart.
Oh, no.
It was pretty stressful. So what we did is we sort of viewed it as a sales opportunity, because we believed in the project, we had committed to this project, and I guess we all had it in our mind that this was going to succeed. So with this, we basically Turned it around. We started campaigning to them, speaking to them, ensuring that we were answering every question. So it's kind of like, I guess, a lot of these ICO runs in a lot of cases, because you've got to give regular updates. You've got to speak to them about what areas you're going to cover, and answer any concerns they have around whether this is good for the cryptocurrency space or not. And we think that if you look at the current documentaries, things like Beyond Bitcoin, not Beyond Bitcoin, Banking on Bitcoin, and Rise of Bitcoin, they seem outdated for the current climate. So we think we can see that the time is right to get a documentary out there, and that's what we've been working on for the last year and a bit. I believe hopefully you'll be looking at completion in the next couple of months.
And then when's the final release? When's the premiere of it all?
That's dependent on the distribution. We've finished our trailer. We've got a lot of sequences cut and prepared up to it. I guess, we're aiming for a final draft within the next 2 to 3 months. And depending on where the distribution companies want it, we're aiming to have it released this year. Well,
you sent me through the preview of the trailer, and honestly, man, it was insane. I watched it like 5 times in a row, and it got me so hyped for blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
Thanks, man.
No, honestly, I can't wait to see it. And just on Dash for one more moment, I'm interested on the voter turnout. What kind of percentage of the Dash holders actually turn out to vote in these DAO systems, these DAO democratic voting mechanisms?
I'm kind of my time's consumed entirely by video editing these days, so I'm not sure about what the percentage turnout now. But when we were going through, it was about a third. Okay. It's about a third to between a quarter and a half average. There was a lot of people. I know we spoke to a couple of Dash kind of hedge funds who basically are holding masternodes for basically as an investment side of things. And I've spoken to a few of those guys, and they won't vote with their masternodes because their idea is their masternode is an investment, so they get a return of the mining fee. So they're not going to vote, and there's various characters in there who are kind of whales who hold a lot in there, who are for the good of Dash, but don't necessarily want to be voting on anything unless they deem it absolutely necessary. So I guess it's still turnout, and it's still kind of democratic, and people who don't want it in the system, who not voting, who are abstaining from voting, they have the opportunity to step in if it's something that they feel isn't for the good of the Dash network.
Yeah, because I was speaking to Roger Ver last week about Dash versus Bitcoin Cash in Venezuela, because obviously Venezuela is like the hub of crypto adoption. And it seems that Dash is just obliterating every other crypto in terms of adoption, which is quite an interesting case study to observe.
The Dash guys are on it. I think the community is amazing. I think, yes, everyone we met in Dash, they're moving the technology forward, and they've got the right kind of libertarian but kind of conscious views to be able to actually really commit and have some real passion behind the technology. So I think the DAO as well gives it a real sense of community as well. If you go onto Dash forums, you go onto Dash Central, or you go onto the Discord channel, everyone's working very hard to get it out there. But in regards to Venezuela, just going back to the DAO, all you see is kind of the odd, every voting cycle you see numerous campaigns for Venezuela, because it is such an important part in my opinion, I think it is such an important part of crypto adoption. These kind of failing currencies that, work for, they basically need an alternative because their current currency has failed them.
No, I agree. And that was going to be my question to you next is, what do you think the main reasons for why do we need cryptocurrencies essentially? Why do you think they're important?
I think cryptocurrencies are important because our current governance model of society is outdated. So you've got, if you look at centralized models, they're inevitably become very corrupt, and also they have agendas and biases. And coming from a more libertarian viewpoint, I think that people shouldn't be censored. People shouldn't be stopped from doing what they want to do. And within the current system, yes, the flow of cash the actual cash itself to some extent may not be censored, but all the exit and entry points for doing anything can be censored. And I think, it's looking at a prime example, let's say WikiLeaks, how they got absolutely stranglehold in. Effectively, he's just a freedom journalist putting out all this information, yet the banks and financial institutions down to PayPal was censoring him because he was speaking out against the government system. And to me, that is, abhorrent in a lot of ways. And I think cryptocurrency really does have the power to change it all and replace these kind of archaic centralized governance models with kind of a decentralized consensus model. And someone you should probably get on here, a guy called Ben, the BTC socialist. I was speaking to him because he calls himself a socialist within Bitcoin. He said Bitcoin gives people the power, basically has a socialist aspect because it gives people the power to kind of control their means of production rather than the network. That is effectively you get, if you're giving a stake into the ecosystem, you then get the ample rewards. There is no central power that actually gets it, and because of this, it's basically distributed and giving the power back to the people without this authoritative force standing over everyone's head.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was talking to a guy yesterday who works in the space, and we were talking about how finance and financial incentives work as a kind of like a means of social cohesion. But in the previous systems, the economic incentives have been more in the background. They've not been as explicit, and they've kind of come as a consequence of cultural meshing. Whereas we were talking about that when you kind of put the financial incentives first and the social cohesion second, that's probably going to provide more of a coherent system which scales across different cultures. It's not bound by culture because, as you know, the US dollar is accepted and wanted in every country, even the ones who hate the US, like North Korea. They hate the US, but they love the US dollar. And we were just talking that it just builds a far stronger foundation for a new global society.
Yeah, I think the fact is that in this political climate is that money has become political. I think that is, is one of the biggest problems we're actually facing. We separate. There's something we hear quite a lot in the space is the separation of finance and state. Yeah. And I think that is paramount to a free society, paramount to kind of free speech. But I can't remember who said it to me, but someone it was Nicholas Gregory from Commerce Block. He basically said to me, Bitcoin is kind of free market capitalism with the removal of the tyranny. And I think, I think that's an absolutely brilliant way to sum it up. Is you're taking, there is a huge amount of tyranny. Money is political, and by taking away the control of the access points and control of the actual value and giving it back to the people is, the only true way to progress without forming into some version of 1984. That's further down the line.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And so when you think about trying to move forward with the crypto and blockchain space, I think a common red flag that people have is just the education. First of all, people aren't educated, and then the ones who are educated are very ill-informed. And you can see that play out throughout Reddit and Twitter. They're not very nuanced opinions. It's a few articles here and there, a few Reddit threads here and there. And so do you think crypto and blockchain education is the primary focus that we need to focus on at the moment, or do you think other things are more important?
I think education and exposure are probably the two biggest things. Like, people need to see this more and need to basically hear more about it. I think, I guess cryptocurrency and blockchain is a learning curve. So as long as people are exposed repeatedly to it, and the education will then follow over. It's a conference we went to recently, CoinFest in Manchester, amazing conference. So I think everyone should go to it. Mm-hmm. But a guy was giving out buy Bitcoin stamps, and it's just a stamp with some red ink. Hang on, I've got one. Yeah, just a simple stamp like this, and it just says buy Bitcoin on it. And me and everyone in the office have been stamping it absolutely everywhere, just getting the message out there. And I think that's cool. The exposure is important, but people need to understand. Yeah, and then the education follows this by understanding, well, why is this a better alternative? It's like when we're traveling around, I've spoken, speaking to various people, is the main question. So why is this better than banking? And you explain, it's taking out the middleman, stopping these restrictions, and it's basically stopping people profiting, basically off this control, and you have the power back. And suddenly you bring it back to those simple terms, things start to click with people. And the more it starts to click, the more they get exposed to this, the more they start to understand it, the more they're going to be more inclined to use this. And especially when, let's say, a few of the shops that they're using starts accepting it, they're going, oh, maybe this is actually a big deal. Maybe this is something that I should invest in it. And having a minimal understanding of the baseline principles, you can then then can start understanding and start actually adopting it into your own life.
I agree. And just on the people you interviewed, you just mentioned it. Who was your favorite person to interview out of everybody? Actually, before we do that, do you want to just list a few of the people who are going to feature in the documentary, and then go on to explain who your favorite was?
We've had all sorts in it. We've interviewed Eric Voorhees, Amir Taki, Craig Wright, Roger Ver, Nicholas Gregory at Economist, guy we spoke about earlier. So just giving some name. Richard Ells from Electronium. A load of the Dash guys like Joel, who is part of Dash Force News. You should really watch that because he really knows his stuff. Chuck Williams, who is part of the Crypto Show. He's one of the ex Dash guys. A few obscure guys who were absolutely awesome to speak to. People like David Shin, Michael Sung. I think that the list definitely goes on. Ronnie Bozing, we met him in Belarus. He's one of the heads of Open Ledger. We met the guys at Gatecoin. We met the Bitcoin Traveler. We've been to Blockstream. We've met Samson Mao, Adam Back, Peter Woolley, who was a surprise interview. That was awesome. And basically a hell of a lot. Also, we've been to kind of so many conferences and so many events, just meeting all sorts of absolute superstars and people who are pioneering the space.
And just you mentioned Craig Wright there. Can you tell me what you think of the delisting of BSV and all of the hysteria you can see on Twitter and all over the place?
I'd say the delisting of BSV, I guess speaking to me, I don't like censorship and things like this, and it kind of smells a little bit like censorship. But just looking at what Craig Wright has done recently, I'm strongly against tactics such as doxing. It's this hollow knot to what's going on there, and then legal campaigns for something that there has been no viable proof for. I'm not going to say he is or isn't. That's I have my own opinions, but in regards of just taking that out of there, that's what it is within the space at the moment, is an opinion, because he has provided no evidence, and he's basically been called out on a numerous pieces of evidence he's come for. So I think, to be brutally honest, he kind of got what's coming. Well, they kind of got what was coming to them. With kind of Calvin R as well, how they're kind of in cahoots around this. I don't wish him any ill will, but if you're going to keep doing tactics like this, unfortunately, there are going to be consequences for it.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just fed up of even hearing about it. I just want everyone to forget about Craig Wright and Calvin and everybody else and just move on with their lives. It's just on crypto Twitter. It's just there's nothing but little fights here and there and fires starting up and fires being put out.
I think that hopefully they don't stop talking about him till after the documentary.
Yeah, true. What was he like? What was he like to meet?
He was very, very generous with his time. He gave us his time. I will say, clearly he's a very smart guy, and with very smart guys, inevitably they have kind of negative aspects of their personality, and I say he was no different. There's a few times that we felt that he got a bit bored with the questions and then just ended up rambling a load of technical jargon. He gave us some really good points for the documentary. He was a bit obnoxious, but it's Craig Wright. What you got to, we were pretty much expecting that. So it was an interesting character. I'm glad I met him. I am glad I met him. He probably wouldn't be my mate, but I'm glad I met him.
You can tick it off the bucket list.
Yeah, exactly. Met Craig Wright.
Yeah. I am the real Craig Wright. So I just see something over your shoulder, the Economist. What is this picture that you've got held up here?
We put that in the office for the old tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists around the formation of Bitcoin. But basically, this was an economist, a couple of the Economists in January 1988, which was for even more for you tinfoil hat wearing guys. It was owned by the Rothschilds at that point. But basically, it is a picture of it says up there, get ready for one world currency. It's got a picture of the Phoenix holding a coin that says 2018, and underneath the Phoenix is loads of burning fiat money. So, I'm not going to read too much into the symbolism, but, I'm sure you can work out, where the conspiracy theorists are going with this.
No, I understand, but why would that be 2018? Because, even though 2018 was the second, the biggest bubble Bitcoin's experienced, is there anything else other than the bubble that makes Bitcoin relate to that image?
I guess because it absolutely jumped up from 2018. This is when people.
Right.
It's like we went to a conference at the beginning of 2018, right? And it was the mobile payments ecosystem in Berlin, which was great. The Dash guys were there. We met Robert Benko, who's the lead head of project management at Dash. He's an absolute dude. But also you met a few other guys there. Mohit, who's now worked at QuickFit. Live Quick back then, but now he's kind of working on other ventures. But basically, people from companies such as Microsoft and MasterCard, Visa, they wouldn't speak to us at all. But yeah, you go to a conference kind of in late 18. Now all the institutions are on to, as we discussed earlier, these private blockchains are actually getting behind Bitcoin. There's more talk about Bitcoin adoption actually happening there. So. I'm not saying that that's there's any truth behind that, but I just think it's always good to ponder and kind of consider these ideas. But I think definitely 2018 was a turning point for crypto. Certainly in regards to people actually noticing it, because it's built up into 2017. Suddenly everyone's getting hyped about it. And 2018 was when the dust settled and we actually see what's left. And we both follow the crypto news. That there was a lot of big announcements last year from various institutions talking about adopting crypto, which we hadn't really experienced to that extent before.
I was just thinking it'd be quite funny if Roger Ver tweeted that out and then he realized that the prophecy came true. Bitcoin Cash was created in 2018. I'll drop him a message and send it to him. Maybe he'll put that as his Twitter banner.
I reckon he'll see it. I reckon he'd live it up.
Yeah. Very true. And so, what's your ultimate goal for this documentary once it gets out there into the real world?
I guess once it gets out to the real world, I want to get it to as many people as possible. That's the idea. I want to portray our message and everything that we're actually, putting across on this documentary. For us, it's not going to end with the documentary. We've got a hell of a lot of footage. We've got about 400 hours worth of footage, and we're working on a lot of other crypto projects as well within the video space. With our company, dogandbird.io, just to plug us a little bit.
Go for it.
But basically, we are. I want this to hit as many audiences as possible. And though a lot of people are saying we should go on a blockchain platform, I don't think the time is right for a documentary like this to go on a blockchain platform and hit more than a few thousand. And that's why we're aiming for, the Netflixes, the Amazons, Primes, the, YouTube subscriptions, the Hulu, all, and just hit as many audiences as possible, get kind of cryptocurrency out there, and then hopefully get more people having the bug like we've got. And then hopefully with all the other footage, we want to release it to the world, use it on other crypto projects, because that's where that's our niche, that's our passion, and that's where we see kind of our media stories actually going out. Yeah.
Which blockchain platforms would you consider if you were to go down that direction?
I know Beyond Bitcoin has sold to Binge, which is a blockchain platform. It seems all right. I've got a list of all the ones kind of labeled down. It's just we were doing some prior investigation on them. But SDTV seems like a really good one. Rovit, we actually interviewed Matt. Can't remember his last name, but he's a really, really good guy. Matt and Mary, I think they're brother and sister. They run Rovit. That's they come from a TV background. And they kind of got the speciality behind us to really kind of launch a blockchain video platform. If the market will allow them to actually expand that much, and the time is right.
Unfortunately, the time doesn't seem quite right. The interest in crypto and blockchain, from the retail investors isn't massive at the moment, as you know.
No, not at all. Hopefully see that change relatively soon.
Yeah. What is your prediction? So I'll make this the last question. What is your prediction for 2019? Where do you think this is all going to go?
I think 2019. I don't know. I don't see potentially a bull run starts at the end of 2019 in regards to price, but it's kind of an afterthought these days. But in regards to technological adoption and actual, I guess, seeing the usage of cryptocurrencies, I see 2019 as kind of continuing the adoption level and the talks about major institutions taking up cryptocurrencies. I see this as the year that it kind of solidifies that, and cryptocurrencies will actually be given a place on a global circuit. Just going along now is this going through some of the WhatsApp and Telegram groups that I'm part of. The amount of people posting things about France talking to the EU about kind of adopting blockchain technology, and everyone's going about the kind of New York Stock Exchange kind of having a digital assets exchange built on the side soon to be able to accept it. Kind of these talks continue. more and more companies are going to be adopting blockchain technology, whether it is a private network. I know kind of the purists would think a private blockchain won't be, isn't good for the ecosystem. But I think, in the same way Ripple is, it's a good stepping stone to actually getting everyone involved in cryptocurrencies, understanding it, and then actually understanding the benefits to, project it to a brighter future.
Yeah, no, listen, I am an open blockchain maximalist, as Andreas Antonopoulos will say. But I'm not. It's not that I'm against private blockchains. It's just that I'm not going to emphasize them, and I'm not going to spend my time diving too far into them when there's such a massive pool of information on public blockchains.
Definitely.
And there's so much progress being made on public blockchains. And in the same way that the intranet versus the internet, it's an amazing analogy for closed versus open blockchains, because back in the day when the internet obviously didn't have the scalability that it does today, people would say, the corporations would say, intranet's the only system that actually works. Okay, yeah, that's true, but all the companies that overly invested in the intranet were then they were late to join the party to the internet. And I feel that it's the same. It's a very good analogy for how I feel about closed versus open. Like, go ahead and make it, but don't get too invested in it, and don't close off the opportunity to join a public system.
No, definitely. That's the way I view it. Is there are uses, potential uses for it. I know some would argue that you could get these uses with a simple Excel database, but it's as a joke. But I do see it as kind of spreading the word. We're talking about exposure and education. If people are starting in baby steps, what better way than something that's going to hold their hand? Do you know what I mean?
True. And I had a guy on the podcast who gave me a great phrase, which is, no one ever got fired for building on top of Hyperledger. It's quite a good one.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay with it. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I've had a lot of fun chatting to you. And good luck with your documentary. Let me know when it's all up and out, and I'll be sure to push it out over social for you. And can't wait to be at the premiere.
Brilliant. Cheers, mate.
All right, take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Talk soon. Bye. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends.